And now, thanks for the house.
Hara Arena is the kind of building that can get easily overlooked when people talk about famous wrestling venues. It wasn't especially large or located in one of wrestling's traditional major markets, but this arena just outside Dayton, Ohio built a wrestling history that was much better than you might expect from a building its size. I'm Alex, back again with another episode, and today I'm counting down my 10 favorite wrestling moments from Hara Arena. Hara opened in 1964, although the Wampler family had already been using the property for years. Harold and Ralph Wampler originally operated a fruit orchard there before expanding into entertainment with a dance hall in the late 1950s. When they added the main arena, they combined the first two letters of their names, Harold and Ralph, to create the Hara name. Hockey was one of Hara's main attractions, with the Dayton gyms among its defining tenets. The building also hosted concerts, circuses, trade shows, conventions, and the Dayton Hamvention. Pro wrestling fit naturally into that schedule. Hara went from territory cards to WWF television in the 1980s, and then to WCW and ECW pay-per-view in the 1990s. The arena closed in August of 2016 after years of financial problems and a lengthy dispute involving the Wampler estate. The vacant complex suffered major tornado damage in 2019, and demolition began the following year. Starting at number 10, Dusty Rhodes turns on Larry Zbyszko during Zbyszko's match against Scott Hall at WCW Sold Out 1998. Zbyszko had spent months opposing the NWO on commentary and in the ring, so when Dusty appeared as his mystery cornerman, it looked like WCW had given Larry another veteran ally. Late in the match, Louis Spicolli interfered and Dusty stepped in. Hall avoided the bionic elbow, Zbyszko took the shot instead, and for a moment it looked accidental. Then Dusty removed his jean shirt and revealed those NWO colors underneath. He hit Zbyszko again and joined Hall and Spicolli in the attack. I have this at number 10 because the match is almost besides the point. Hara got the image of Dusty Rhodes revealing the black and white and joining the NWO. 9. Masato Tanaka faces Mike Awesome at ECW Heat Wave 1998. Tanaka had only recently started appearing regularly in ECW when Awesome returned. Tanaka beat him in Awesome's return match, and Awesome answered by putting him through a table with the Awesome Bomb. That gave ECW a simple reason to run it back at Heat Wave. The matchup worked because Awesome could throw Tanaka around like very few opponents could, while Tanaka's entire job seemed to be absorbing an unreasonable amount of punishment and getting back up. Eventually, Tanaka survives long enough to catch Awesome with a tornado DDT onto a chair for the win. These two didn't need a championship attached. Hara got an ECW pay-per-view chapter built almost entirely around how much punishment both guys were willing to take. 8. Taz defends the FTW Championship against Bam Bam Bigelow in a False Count Anywhere match at Heat Wave 98. The FTW belt was really part of Taz's larger argument with Shane Douglas. Douglas was still the recognized ECW World Champion, while Taz was presenting himself as the champion ECW refused to acknowledge, and the franchise was sitting at commentary. Bigelow was one of the few wrestlers on the roster that was big enough that Taz couldn't simply bully him around. The fight eventually reached the entrance ramp, where a Taz DDT sent both men crashing through the structure. Taz recovered, locked in the Taz mission, and retained the title. Then he immediately called out the franchise, who responded by throwing a monitor and leaving commentary. That's why this one fits with the list. At Hara, beating Bigelow was no longer the destination for Taz. Douglas was. 7. Sting beats Ming for the vacant WCW United States Championship at the 1995 Great American Bash. Vader had been stripped of the title earlier that spring, which sent the belt into a tournament. Sting and Ming were supposed to meet in one semifinal, but Ric Flair and Randy Savage went to a no contest in the other, and both were eliminated. That turned Sting-Ming into the match that would decide the championship. Ming worked in this spot because he never felt like a routine obstacle. He had the size and presentation that made him believable as somebody who could stop Sting from cruising to the title. Sting eventually catches him with a jumping DDT to begin his second United States Championship reign. That also means WCW's first pay-per-view at Hara produced a new champion and one of the company's biggest stars. Quick side note on Ming, I think it's pretty cool seeing him back on WWE television as Haku. 6. Piper's Pit gives Dayton a direct connection to WrestleMania 3 during a WWF Superstars taping in March of 1987. The WWF was deep into the build for Hulk Hogan defending the championship against Andre the Giant when Jack Tunney appeared on Piper's Pit to unveil an oversized belt that Bobby Heenan had requested for Andre if he ended up beating Hulk at WrestleMania. Andre and Heenan then joined the set, and the belt looked almost like a small toy sitting across Andre's shoulder. That fit the story perfectly. Andre wasn't another challenger moving through Hogan's schedule. The WWF sold him as such a physical threat that even the championship might need to change if he had won it. I included this because Hara hosted an actual piece of the final promotional push towards the biggest match the WWF had ever had. 5. Kevin Nash takes on the Giant at WCW Sold Out 1998. Alright, this one has nothing to do with the quality of the match. It's here because of the jackknife. This match was supposed to happen a month earlier at Starrcade, but Nash missed the show, so WCW pushed it to Sold Out. With Hogan and Bischoff at ringside, Nash threw hot coffee in the Giant's face, hit a low blow, and tried to powerbomb him. JR might have called this one bowl and shoe ugly. The Giant came down high on his head and neck, and the attention immediately shifted to referees and trainers that were checking on him. WCW turned the accident into a storyline on the following Nitro, when J.J. Dillon banned the powerbomb and its variations, with a DQ and fine attached for Nash using one. That's what gets this into the top 5. Something that happened to Hara immediately changed the rules on WCW television. 4. RVD and Sabu defend the ECW World Tag Team Championships against Hayabusa and Jinsei Shinzaki at Heat Wave 98. RVD and Sabu had won the belts from Chris Candido and Lance Storm just over a month earlier. ECW's relationship with FMW then supplied a completely different kind of challenge, bringing Hayabusa and Shinzaki over from Japan for the title match here. If I was going to recommend one Hara Arena match purely on what happened in terms of bell-to-bell action, this would probably be the one. RVD brought the confidence and the athleticism, Sabu was willing to throw himself into almost anything, and Hayabusa and Shinzaki could meet them at that pace without feeling like another regular ECW team. The finish came when both challengers laid across the table. RVD and Sabu came off the top with stereo leg drops, and Sabu covered Shinzaki to retain. It's this high on my list because Hara got an ECW title match built around a genuine international crossover, a side of the promotion that can get buried underneath all the blood and weapons. 3. Chris Jericho beats Rey Mysterio Jr. for the WCW Cruiserweight Championship at Sold Out 98. Jericho is moving away from the straightforward babyface version of himself and into the louder, more pompous heel that would define his WCW run. Rey entered with an injured knee, giving Jericho something obvious to work. After a little more than 8 minutes, Mysterio tried a Hurricane Rana from the top rope, but Jericho countered into the Lion Tamer and forced the submission. Jericho took advantage of a post-match promo to draw even bigger heat after beating Rey. He grabbed the mic, reacted to the boos, and removed Rey's knee brace and attacked his injured leg, eventually driving a toolbox into the knee. That's what puts this at number 3. Hara didn't just get a Cruiserweight title change. It caught Jericho right as the character people remember from his WCW run was really starting to take shape. 2. Balls Mahoney and Spike Dudley dethroned the Dudley Boys for the ECW World Tag Team Championship at Heat Wave 1999. Balls and Spike had already spent weeks wrestling the Dudleys, including multiple matches for the belts, so this wasn't a random pay-per-view title shot. At Heat Wave, the Dudleys went for the 3D only for Balls and Spike to counter at the same time. Balls covered Bubba while Spike covered Devon, pinning both champions simultaneously. And that should have been the celebration. Instead, the Dudleys attacked them afterwards and eventually powerbombed Spike through a flaming table, which is like the most Spike Dudley bump you're ever gonna see. Then, New Jack returned, shopping cart and all, and went after those damn Dudleys. A year after ECW first brought Heat Wave to Hara, the return trip gave the building a championship change and one of the most ECW post-match scenes possible. Number 1. Bret Hart makes his WCW in-ring debut against Ric Flair at Sold Out 1998. The Hitman had arrived in WCW only a few months after Montreal, making his move one of the most closely watched jumps between wrestling companies in years. I'm sure that one will make an appearance on my Bell Center episode coming up in just a couple of weeks. But signing Bret was one thing. Fans still needed to see what the Hitman wrestling for WCW actually looked like, and the opponent waiting for him was the Nature Boy. Their spot on the card says a lot about WCW at the time. The company had acquired Bret immediately after one of the biggest stories in wrestling, yet the NWO still dominated so much of that promotion that his first match wasn't treated like the center of the show. After a nearly 20-minute bout, Bret hit the superplex, locked Flair in the sharpshooter, and forced Nate to tap out. For a building outside wrestling's biggest markets, hosting Bret Hart's first WCW match is a pretty strong claim to history. That's why it's number 1. What I like about Hara Arena is how often this relatively small building ended up attached to wrestling stories that were much bigger than Dayton. I always wanted to see a wrestling show here, but I never got to make the trip for wrestling. I did see hockey though. Late in its life, it was a sad old barn. The history isn't obvious from the outside, but once you go through the cards, you keep finding careers, championships, and storylines changing inside this place. As always, please like, subscribe, and let me know your favorite Hara Arena moment down in the comments. Next time, we're heading to Atlanta for the Omni. That's an episode you're definitely not going to want to miss. Thanks for the house.